I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!"
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm the dude, so that's what you call me.
Let's go get sushi and not pay.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Hooah! And welcome to another episode of Furious Cinema Podcast. I'm Pete Roberts, and I'm here with my co-host,
Seb, live from Berlin.
How's it going, Seb?
I'm good. How are you?
Going pretty good. But okay, so today we're going to be talking about a road thriller double feature of Duel from 1971, which was directed by Steven Spielberg, and Breakdown from 1997, which was directed by Jonathan Mostow. And this is a genre that we were a big fan of. We're big fans of road movies, anyways. But this is like sort of like a subgenre of road movies, the road thriller, and that's like one of my favorites. I've always been like into those types of movies. So like I think the Hitcher would probably be the first one I remember really, making an impact. That was probably like in the 80s on like VHS or something. One of the first things I rented on VHS.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one too. That's like the first one I like was exposed to. I didn't really know, but then as the years went on, I got more into movies more seriously. I studied more about that genre and stuff. But Duel, what?
Yeah, I was just gonna say they got they've always been with us. Sort of, they got prominent in the '90s, and they mixed them with like teeny slashers.
Oh yeah, right. Like
for example, if you do Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, wasn't that movie? Oh, what's that one with Paul Walker and that guy? It's
Joyride.
It's not Go. It's something like I
Joyride.
can't remember. It's like I can't remember the name of that one, but
It's
that was a good
Joyride.
one. What was it?
Joyride.
Yeah, Joyride. Yeah, that's it. Joyride. That was a good one too.
Mm.
But that's like the type of thing, like people are like in like in Duel from 1971. That was one of Steven Spielberg's first actually it was a made-for-TV movie at first, and then like I think after that they released it overseas as like a regular movie. But like nowadays,
It's just too good for TV.
yeah, I mean it was really I mean the thing about the movie Duel is when you watch it, you can see like how good of a visual storyteller he is. That's like one of the main things I love about it. It's like, you could almost watch it without the sound and you'd know what was going on, that type of thing. It's almost like a silent movie without, you know what I mean? If you had to watch it as a silent movie, you could follow it like that way. And that shows you how good of a visual storyteller he was. But I mean, the movie itself, I guess, was based on a real incident that happened to the writer Richard Matheson. He was traveling across the country. I think it happened on the day of JFK's assassination. He was driving across the country, and something happened with a trucker, and he ended up being like in a game sort of like of cat and mouse with this trucker, like chasing him all like I don't know how far it went, but like it was that's what kind of inspired the spark of the story to like for him to write it. So that's where that came from. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, that can happen, like road rage stuff. That can happen to anybody. But he kind of like took it to like a fantasy level where where the main character of the movie is Dennis Weaver. His name is David Mann, I think, and he's like just a everyman businessman. He's on like a road trip and he's going up the coast, I think, of California somewhere, and then he runs across this trucker, and that's how it starts.
couple episodes back, we talked about Falling Down.
Oh yeah, Falling Down,
He,
right.
he reminded me a little bit of, it's like a white collar guy.
Right, just an
He's not,
everyman type guy.
yeah, it's an everyman
Yeah.
type guy, not an aggressive type. He's
Right.
the kind who would probably rather, escape a confrontation
Right.
rather than to seek
Exactly,
it.
right. And it's also, that's another thing of both of these movies kind of share, is both these characters, when you watch the movie, both of them are kind of like being like almost like taunted by the people like in the movie. Like everywhere David Mann goes, he's not like he's not wimpy, but he's sort of like he's sort of like a nerdy guy, sort of nerdy, you know what I mean? That type of thing. Like you were saying, someone that wouldn't want to go through confrontation.
Desk
Yeah.
jockey, city guy.
Right, it's just that type of guy. Like, he's not like, there's at one point he stops and he calls his wife, and I guess they had like something happen, like some guy was hitting on his wife and he didn't do anything about it. So like they're kind of setting him up as a kind of like a wimp, like, not a wimp, but that type of guy like that doesn't want to face things. So throughout the movie, as you're watching it, like what's happening is he's like suddenly fighting back now. Like now he's finding like that part of him, like where he's like not going to take it and like, fight back against this, whatever, this unseen trucker. But I mean, that's that whole psychological thing is going on through it. Like people are kind of like, whenever he stops somewhere, like he'll make a comment and someone like will kind of make fun of him or something. And that's another thing I loved about the movie was like the humor in the movie. There's always humor throughout there's a bunch of humor throughout the film. So like when you're like he's driving the car and he's listening to the radio and they're like talking on the radio about some weird stuff and he's kind of joking, like kind of laughing to himself. That's like the first little bit of it. Then when he stops at that diner, like there's a whole big the first initial chase where like he's trying to get by the trucker and the trucker won't let him get by, but then he gets by him and then they start this big long chase and he ends up crashing into like a fence, and then that old guy comes up to him. He's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm all right. I think I hurt my neck." And I thought it was really funny the way the guy tried to like kind of grab his neck. It was just like funny, like stuff like that, like weird little things like that. And then he gets out of the truck and he goes into that diner and like he's like, and he makes some comment like, the guy says, what happened out there? And he says, "Oh, we just a small little complication." And the guy goes, "Well, it looked like a big complication to me," like that. And everybody started laughing. It was just like stuff like that. It's just like these little funny things. So it's like that's what kind of pulls you into the movie. And like it's like the humor and the action and stuff. That's what I loved about it at first. So I don't know how you felt about it.
And it's got a lot of attention to detail. I mean,
Yeah.
we got to realize it's basically a one-man show.
Yeah.
And it's basically a one location movie because the location is just the guy's car.
Right.
And Spielberg works a lot with, so it's not really from his perspective, but we're kind of looking over his shoulder and watching him deal with the situation.
Right.
And we got a lot of mirror work going on. And that's
Mirror
also,
work.
I think it's part of what you mentioned as the humoristic aspect, because
Right.
we see him listening to the radio and he's like, haha, I shot this guy, and he keeps driving, camera goes up, and you're like, wait a second, this guy is gonna be in the mirror in just a second, and lo and behold, there it is. And so it's like a constant.
It keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Yeah,
basically.
it's like a little play with camera angles and
Right, I love it.
expectations and stuff
Yeah,
like
I love that. And also, I noticed like with the camera placement, like there's certain shots like where the camera will be like in, like it'll be like in like looking through his rear view mirror. Then there'll be like a shot with like the camera on the front of the car, so it's just above the roof. So it adds this weird like. It's like it almost adds like a suspenseful element to it, like because the way it's shot, because you're almost expecting to see the truck behind him, like from one shot to the next, and then there is some shots where that happens. Like he'll be like driving and it'll be a totally empty, blank, empty highway. Then all of a sudden, the next shot you'll see like the truck like right in back of him. So it like keeps you on the edge of your seat through the whole time, and it's almost like we're him. So it's like we're in his head with him, and he's like. And another thing I loved about the movie was the voiceover narration, because it kind of like pulls you into his psychological state. But it's also kind of funny too, the way he like narrates it, like the way he talks and stuff. His voice is kind of raspy, and it's just kind of like, I don't know, I just love that whole aspect of it. It just made it more like intense or something, or funny and intense. Yeah.
I thought the voiceovers were the worst part of the
Oh,
movie. I
really? You
think
didn't? I like
uh,
that though. I like that though.
I thought the movie was better when he was actually talking to himself. Like, here we
Oh
go,
man.
or you can't beat me on the grade.
Yeah, you can't meet. I don't know. I just found that like it did work for me, the voiceovers. Sometimes it wouldn't, but this one kind of did because I just thought it made it kind of humorous, like in the way he did it. I don't know. I just liked it,
Mm.
the way he was like talking to himself.
But what's really strong, I think, is there's a really slow escalation going on.
Yeah.
And I think there's like three types of escalations going on. So the first, I think, is when he realizes that they're switching from something that's sort of like a playful tit
Cat and
for
mouse
tat
game.
thing
Yeah.
on the road to a point where it's really serious or deadly. Because
Yeah.
we've all been in these situations. You pass the truck
Right.
passes you. Maybe there's some honking going on. This
Right.
it might not be super serious, And
Right.
I
It's
think
just
the
yeah.
first kind of escalation that you see here is I'm not sure exactly which moment it is, but there's a moment where he's realizing, wait a second, this
Oh, I
is
know
not.
what it is. I know what happens. The guy tries to wave him in front. He's like trying to get by him, and the guy waves him, and he goes to go by him, and there's a car coming the other way. So he's like, "Oh God, this
Probably,
guy's trying
yeah,
to kill me now."
yeah.
So that's where the first little inkling of him, like realizing, okay, this guy's crazy. That's
Pretty
that's in
sure.
front of me here. So he
And
tries to
then
get by him, and then that's how it's kind of how it starts.
yeah, and
And then
there's
he
two
like
others
starts.
that I liked. Is the one that you mentioned in the diner where
Yeah,
the truck's outside
that was
and
a good
he
sequence. I love that.
realizes that
Yeah.
for a second it could be any of the patrons of the diner.
And he's trying to figure. That's the part where he's kind of like looking out through. He's kind of covering his face, but kind of looking through his fingers to the
He doesn't
guys at
know
the
how the
bar
guy
to
looks
try
like.
to figure out who it is or something, that
Yeah,
type of thing.
he doesn't know how the guy looks
And they
like.
all and like also there's another little detail like when he stops at the gas station, like when he first stops at the gas station before it escalates too far. He sees the truck pulls up right next to him at the gas station, and he sees the guy's boots. All we see is the guy's boots walking on the side of the truck, like he's checking his like tires and stuff, and he's wearing like cowboy boots. So then when it cuts to the sequence in the diner, we're all he's looking at all the boots. All the guys have basically the same boots on. So he's like, okay, it could be any of these guys. How am I going to figure out who this is? But then what happens is there's one guy sitting eating a sandwich like over in the corner. He's like, okay, I think that's the guy. So he goes over and it's not the guy, and it ends up this big fight and stuff. And like it's kind of funny the way they shoot it. Like he's like the guy's like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, stop chasing me, or stop. I don't want to play this game anymore, or something like that. And the guy's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm just sitting here. And he's like, that's like what's funny. So we know it's not that guy either. And then they have this fight, and then the guy gets they kick him out of the diner. So he's like, okay, that's not that guy. So, but it's just funny the way they shot that whole sequence. Because they're making him like he's trying to fight back, but it's like he's not doing it in the right way because he's like he just doesn't know what he's doing basically. So
Yeah, it's like a fish out of water. He's like
yeah, he's like
he
a
wants
fish out of
he
water.
wants to play tough, but he's really not up
Yeah,
to
right.
it.
Exactly.
And there's a third one which I think has been copied so many times. Is when he stops at a railroad crossing and he
Oh
needs
yeah,
to
yeah.
wait for the train to
Right.
pass, and then the truck pulls up behind him and wants to shove him into the
Yeah, right.
tracks or something like that.
And also
Yeah.
he's like, and also the part, I don't know if that's the same part where he's like, he takes like a nap like for a little while, like he like pulls over and like right next to the train tracks, and he like, and then it almost sounds like the truck, but it's actually the train going by. It's not the truck, like the truck and the train almost have the same noise of like that, like,
Yeah,
that high
yeah,
engine
it's right.
noise. Like,
Yeah,
so that
and
like wakes him up. So then he like kind of laughs to himself because he realizes it's not the truck. So then he starts to drive away.
and it's almost like Spielberg went through like a whole brainstorming of things that could really happen.
Yeah, that
So he
was
could play with what little he had at his disposal. And one example is there's a moment when his engine starts overheating, but he has to go up the hill. I was like,
right,
oh, and you're like, oh, what now? And
right,
the guy is like, oh, what now? And you're
right,
like, come
exactly.
on, it's got to make the last couple feet up the hill,
That's
up
what's
the
so
hill.
good about the movie is like it's so relatable, like like all that you're trying, like you'd think that you'd try to figure out how to get through this the way he would. Basically it's like, so everything he does you're like, oh yeah, I would do that, or I wouldn't do that. But like like then there's other stuff like that in the movie, like where he'll pull over to like he pulls over to like a little like rest stop, and there's like what was it? It was like a little like animal, like a zoo thing, like a zoo cages with like reptiles and stuff. And he
Yeah,
goes to
she
make a
collects
call.
rattlesnakes and
Yeah, it's like
stuff. Yeah.
rattlesnakes and spiders and stuff. And he goes to make a call, and the guy just plows right into the telephone booth and just like takes out the whole place. He basically just destroys the whole rest stop. Like all the spiders get everywhere and the snakes and everything. And then the lady that owns the place is like flipping out. She's like, "What the hell?" It's like it's just crazy.
But he keeps going in circles, and
Right.
the
And
truck.
he just destroys the whole thing. But then another part where Dennis Weaver's character stops. There's a bus that has kind of like broken down or something, like a school bus with a bunch of kids, and he tries to like help push the bus with his little like he's driving like a little Plymouth Valiant or something like that, like a little tiny like Dodge Dart type car, and he like tries to help him push, and he gets caught underneath the back bumper of the bus, and it's like he can't get out, and finally he gets out, but then the trucker comes along and helps push the bus out of where it's stuck. So it's like weird. So that he's like killing one guy, but he's helping these other people. It's just strange, but it adds to the tension of the movie, like adds to the craziness of it because he's like what's going on here with this person.
Yeah, and all the time we have no idea who's driving the truck, and
You
that's not
never see
changing for the entire part, the entire movie. It's not like this because nowadays you would probably have some cheap as like in the 90th minute they would probably reveal the guy or whatever lame moment. But here we never have that.
you never see him at all. So that's
Mm.
what that's obviously that makes it even more like creepy and weird because it's like and then it's like it could be like in his head, like some stuff could be in his head and other stuff could be like real, like you don't kind of know some of the things, like, but most of it seems like it's real. But
That's an interesting point you're making because there's a lot of movies where you have a stretch of the film where nobody takes the main character serious.
right, and
And
that's
we're going to see that in Breakdown as well.
yeah,
And you're as the viewership, you're like, maybe he's just really exaggerating. Maybe it wasn't on purpose what the
maybe
truck
he's
driver did,
tired or
yada
something.
yada
Yeah,
yada, yeah. Or
right,
what? It's just a stupid misunderstanding. Or
right,
maybe he taunted the guy.
yeah,
Maybe he's got himself to. But you got all these things, and they keep recurring in road movies. And I
right,
think you see that here just a little bit because
right,
Spielberg's not overdoing it, but you see this a little bit where it's like, you know what?
right.
Maybe if he hadn't raced the guy in the beginning or whatever.
Right. I mean, it's just like a misunderstanding. Like, but then obviously it like escalates beyond that. But it's like it's one of those things like that's the whole thing of the movie. Like you don't know if he's sort of like overtired from driving and stuff, or like there's certain sections where the truck stops and like waits on the side of the road for him. I think there's a whole part like where they have this this chase, but then the truck waits on the side of the road for him, and he's trying to get by the truck, and every time he tries to like drive up this thing, the truck pulls out in front of him. So it's like he's trying to figure out a way to get around it, but it just gets worse and worse.
And one thing we haven't really, I mean, I think the big part about this movie is actually style because there's not a lot of plot going on. So he's really and for some reason he had Spielberg probably had a free hand in shooting this however the way however the fuck he wanted, and he shoots the hell out of this movie.
Yeah, and also there's if you look close, you probably didn't catch this, but I've watched it a few times. Like I've watched this movie many times, and if you look closely in certain shots, Steven Spielberg is in the back seat of the car. Like I don't know if he has the camera or not, but he's like crouched down in the back. You can see him in like the rear view mirror and like a few little shots like here and there. But
Okay.
that was kind of cool. That's like after I watched it like 20 times, I look up all the trivia about it and stuff and try to see where he is and stuff. But then there was another thing about the movie where, uh, like years, when I was a little kid, I used to watch this TV show, The Incredible Hulk. You've heard of The Incredible Hulk TV show with
Mhm.
Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby, but
Yeah.
there was one episode where basically what they did was they took all the footage from Duel and made an episode from that. Like they took all the footage like of the car chase stuff, the stuff where Dennis Weaver isn't in it, and they added it into this episode. That's where I first saw the movie, although I didn't see it. I saw the Incredible Hulk version of the movie, but they used a ton of footage for that from the Duel. So that was kind of cool to find that out. I was like, wow, this is crazy. It's like the same movie, but with with different characters basically. So that was kind of weird.
Huh.
That's like a little like movie trivia.
And we already mentioned a few movies that may or not have been inspired by it. But I mentioned Jeepers Creepers as one of the movies I saw when I was a teenager.
Right.
And another one that's actually super interesting that we could have paired with this one is one that's more exploitation-y, and it's The Car.
Oh yeah, the car. Right, right.
And it's
Yeah, that's
more
the one with the killer
mythical.
car.
It's a little bit more supernatural and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
But
more of like
it's a
that's sort of like in the same thing.
similar
That's like,
setup. Yeah.
that's right. Like if if the truck was like being driven like by a evil spirit versus like a real person like type thing.
Yeah.
But that would fit with this one too. Those types
And
of movies.
you can't deny that if you watch Death Proof, all the
Yeah,
camera
Death Proof.
angles, the movements and whatever.
Yeah, right. All those
Yeah.
movies.
I have to say, if we look at road movies in general, I think what makes them great stylistically is that you have a certain dynamic because things are moving,
Right.
and that just changes the whole
That's what's good about them
whole
because
thing. Yeah.
you're never in the same place. You're always moving on. You're meeting different characters, and that's great for the movie storytelling. It's like a perfect blueprint or template to put your movie on. You know what I mean? You can go anywhere with it. You can like make it funny, or you can make it scary, or you know what I mean. You can do you can do basically anything in that type of genre, and it's really like good for stunts and like all that type of stuff. You can like find all ways to make it thrilling by adding all these stunts and stuff and all that.
Yeah, and yet you need to be very
Car
careful
chases.
because the audience needs to still the audience
Believe it, I guess, or
yeah,
something,
but
or make it
the
believable.
audience can't lose track or sense of location. So
Right.
it's also very very tricky to shoot because
Yeah.
in the end you don't want to confuse. You don't want to
Right.
disorient whatever. And
You know what I was thinking was when, as a filmmaker, I'd be like, think about editing the movie with all that footage of all the road footage. I mean, you'd have to like keep track of all the stuff. I was thinking like, how did you keep track of like where this shot starts and this shot ends, or that type of stuff. That's what I was thinking about when I was watching. After watching it like 20 times, I'm thinking about like the filmmaking aspect, like in visually, how do you tell the story? Like, where do you put the camera? Where do you add some humor? Where do you like make it scary? Like that's what's really great about it. That's why I loved it. And also, this is basically a precursor to Jaws. That's the other thing I was going to
I
bring
was
up.
just gonna say
It's just it's just Jaws on the road basically. It's just a a road movie with a truck instead of the shark. So that's like another thing. So and I think I'm not sure, but I think that weird sound effect, the weird sound effect that starts the movie. It's like that. I don't know what it is. It's like a weird like I can't do it, but it's like a weird noise, like that sound effects that's in the movie, and it's at
From
the
the
at the
shark.
beginning of the movie, and it's at the end of the movie, like after the whatever. I won't spoil the end of the movie, but I think that sound shows up in Jaws. I'm not sure though. I haven't watched it in a while, but I think that noise kind of like is part of the sound design in Jaws or something. It's at one point. But I'm not sure about that. That might be something I heard or something. I can't remember.
It's almost like Jaws is its own genre,
Yeah, it is.
You have like Jaws on the road. This morning I watched the
Right.
Jaws on the lake, Lake
Oh,
Placid.
what's it? What's
Lake
that one?
Placid.
Yeah, Lake Placid. Right. I've seen that before. That's pretty good too.
This Jaws
Was
on
that
the
an
lake.
was that an alligator? Wasn't it an alligator?
Yeah.
Yeah, an alligator. Yeah, I've seen Alligator too. That's a good one with Robert Forster.
I still haven't seen the
Oh yeah, that's a
those
good
two.
one.
They're on my list.
But yeah, the whole road movie genre we love. Like, do you have you have a few favorites? Like I just posted, like we just started our Blue Sky account, on Furious Cinema on Blue Sky, and I posted a picture of Duel, and then I posted one for Harry and Tonto. That's one of my favorite road movies. It's just like it's more of like it's more of like a lighthearted, like, kind of a comedy road movie, like with Art Carney. It's not like a thriller or anything, but that's sort of like
Yeah.
those types of movies.
I give you one I saw a couple of weeks back or months back, Race with the Devil.
Oh yeah, Race with I
Which
love
is
that one
a
too. That's like an
crossover-
exploitation type.
Yeah, it's like a crossover with like exploitation elements.
Yeah, it has like the satanic cult and like, they're chasing Peter Fonda and Warren Oates and stuff and their wives. That's a really good one. I love that. There's some really good action like sequences in that.
And then of course we have Vanishing Point.
Oh yeah, in Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, of course.
That one, yeah, the good old days.
Those are the good old
The Vanishing Point days.
the good old days, the good old grindhouse days.
Yeah, I think I got
All or nothing days.
or something. A Cannonball Run or
Yeah, all those. Smokey and the Bandit, and I have like a ton I love, like Scarecrow. We talked about that on one of our episodes.
Yeah, Scarecrow is pretty good. Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that whole genre is just awesome. It's like, there's so many good
And I have to
movies.
say, just on a personal note, when I was a kid or like a teenager, and I started watching movies, there was obviously we all had that sort of phase where we started, thinking of writing our own screenplays or
Oh yeah,
whatever. And
right.
the first ideas I had were always road movies. I
It's
don't know
actually
why,
good.
but I was
It's
like,
actually a really good place to start. Actually, I think. Like
yeah, because
just
I mean,
using this as an example.
maybe being over influenced by I don't know,
Yeah.
cool gangster movies where people are
Didn't you?
just
Weren't you a
sitting in
fan of Love in a 45? Wasn't that the one, or was it Perdita Durango? One of those.
Perdita Durango is
Yeah,
pretty good.
you liked. I
Yeah,
remember back years ago.
yeah,
You were saying that you liked that.
yeah. That's a good one too. That's
Yeah,
right.
all those. I think it's just one of those things. Like we were saying, like they're very good for like introducing different characters and stuff. Like when the character, like say, they're going across country, like on like a trip or something, and like that's just a perfect way to like introduce different characters, like in like a realistic, like believable way. Like you're not like forcing it. You know what I mean? Because that's what happens when you go on trips. You meet different people and get into different adventures and stuff.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think that's
point.
why people like them. Easy Rider is the other one. Easy Rider is
Yeah.
one of my favorites. That's a really good road movie with different, characters and stuff.
And one last. I mean, I was looking up Dennis Weaver, and I thought I'd seen him in so many like old westerns as like the cowboy number
Yeah, he was
five
on.
or
I think he was
whatever.
on Gunsmoke.
Yeah, he
He was on
was. Yeah.
Gunsmoke, I think.
Yeah,
But then he was in
he did
Touch
a
of
lot
Evil
of
too.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think he did a lot of like, he wasn't a headliner in a lot of stuff.
yeah. I think he was like more of a supporting character. But like he was in
Yeah,
Touch of Evil. That's one of the other ones I remember him from. He
yeah,
played like kind of like a crazy character in that.
yeah. That's kind
But
of
he
an
was good.
underused. I mean, I mean, he was probably cheap to get for
Yeah, I
Spielberg,
think
but
so.
he could have done more like
Yeah.
lead character stuff.
Yeah, he was good. And I don't know if around this time, it might have been a few years later, he started in a TV show, McCloud, I think it was. And that was like his, like that was like one of his bigger, like, featured roles on the TV. I never really saw it. I might have seen a few episodes, but, that
Okay,
was sort of like before my time. So, but I mean, that was like, another thing that like kind of he was known
it was
for.
way before my time.
Yeah, in the 70s or something like that. But yeah, I mean, but like overall, like Duel, I think it was like a really great, like showcase for Steven Spielberg's, his filmmaking style. I mean, it was really awesome. I mean, it was like you were saying, like it could have been like a feature film, really. I mean, you watch it and you're like, wow, this is just like a TV movie. This is like awesome stuff. I mean, it was just so like, it was just like very unique. It stood out, I thought, from like all the other stuff that was coming out. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many movies back then, like made for TV movies. But when you watch this one, it's like really, it's like the cream of the crop. I think it's really just excellent.
And what's got me thinking is that the cinematography is so good and the details are so pervasive
Yeah,
that with the television technology back then, I wonder if people were even able to appreciate it.
probably not. I mean,
Yeah. I
maybe.
mean, all the little stuff and the mirrors and all that stuff. I mean, you couldn't
Yeah, I don't
possibly
think
see
so. I
this.
mean, it's just yeah, it's like and like the difference between back then and now is when that was gone, that was gone. When that was gone off TV, that was gone forever. I mean, we didn't, you're not going to be. I don't think they released it here like in movie theaters, but like if you missed it, you don't have a VCR in 1972. You don't have and you
Yeah.
don't have the Diva, the TiVo in 1972. So once that was gone, people probably missed. If you missed it that night it was on, you never saw it again. So it's like one of those things. It was such a little special film, I think, that people
Yeah.
missed probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you talk about Steven Spielberg's, the Hitchcock influence, definitely that was a Hitchcockian type of movie. Like,
Oh
just all
yeah.
the
Oh
visual
yeah.
stuff and,
Yeah.
all the suspense. It was that was awesome. I mean, that was like, he was really like, out of all the movie brats, he was just up there with those, I think like even before, I mean, I don't think even Brian De Palma had made like something like that at that time. He was like even before that. So it was like, that was a great, showcase, I thought, for his talent.
And it did have, I want to say it had a little touch of post-apocalyptic atmosphere or like an air of post-apocalyptic
Yeah, I
scene. I
think
mean,
so.
if you
Like
look at
he's
the
kind of
truck,
alone, like out in the middle of nowhere type
yeah,
thing.
there's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
point of evidence one, there's hardly anyone on the road. Point two is the truck looks like he's out of Mad Max.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's like it's all like covered in like grease and oil. It's like it just looks like it's like been like around for like 50 years or something, and never
guy
cleaned
has been
or anything.
terrorizing folks on that.
Yeah, that's a
road
good point.
since
The
the
look of
40s.
the truck, like, and I think Steven Spielberg especially picked that truck because of the way it looked. That's why he picked that one, because he was looking. I remember reading that he was looking through all the different trucks, and he's like, okay, I got to find one that looks like a monster, and he picked one that looked like a monster. Basically, it was just like totally like a messy looking truck.
And I'm gonna call him Bruce.
Yeah, I mean Bruce, Bruce the truck. But I mean, that's all the stuff, like all that. That's all the stuff that goes into your head, like when you're watching. Like it's like subconscious stuff. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of it is like subconscious. Like as you're watching it, you're not like think it's just on the on the surface or beneath the surface or something. And it's like it just goes into like making it more intense or more like unique or something.
No, I mean I can't think of any other movie like a first time directing job that's up on that level of craftsmanship.
Yeah, I mean it's really awesome. I mean it's just I can't like say anything more. I mean like I was saying, it's basically the road version of Jaws, and as we know, Jaws is like one of the best movies ever made. So it's like it's pretty close. I mean they're pretty. It's the proto Jaws, I guess, is what they say. Proto Jaws.
Road Jaws.
Road Jaws. But yeah, so the Duel is definitely one of my favorites, and you like it too, right? You're a big fan.
Yeah, I enjoyed it massively rewatching this. Yeah.
That's the thing about it. It's very rewatchable. Like you can rewatch it anytime and get into it. And it's one of those movies that just pulls you into the story so easily. Like, you know what I mean? Just the way it's shot and the way the pacing and stuff. It's just very well made. So
it would be a great one to see on the big screen.
Yeah, that would be.
I want to see that on a big screen.
Yep, definitely.
And like a 35 millimeter print.
Yep, definitely. That would be an awesome film to watch. Okay, I guess that does it. No other thoughts, I guess. We kind of went through all the different
Yeah, we can go and do a little time
I suppose you
jump
can talk
into the
about
90s.
it forever, but we don't want to make it too expensive. But I'd like to read
It's not the most well-known movie either. I mean,
I don't think it probably if you're a Steven Spielberg, big Spielberg fan, you probably know about it. But I don't think I don't know how many people know about this that are just into movies. You might have missed it or something, or since it was a TV movie, and that's. So I'll read a couple critical quotes to see what they thought. So Leonard Maltin said, "This TV movie put Spielberg on the map, and rightly so. A superb suspense film. He rates it above average, and it's his highest rating for a TV film." David Thompson writes, "The ordinariness of the Dennis Weaver character and the monstrous malignance of the truck confront one another with a narrative assurance that never needs to remind us of the element of fable. The ending is unsatisfactory, partly because of the rest of the film is so momentous, but also sheer skill needed more philosophy for a fitting resolution." I don't really care about that.
Yeah, what's his problem with the ending?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's kind of a stupid one. Stephen King wrote that Duel is a gripping, almost painfully suspenseful rocket ride of a movie. Perhaps not Spielberg's best work. That must almost certainly wait for the 80s and 90s, but surely one of the half-dozen best movies ever made for TV. But what about Jaws, though? He just skipped right over Jaws. 80s and 90s. What's he talking about? Yeah, Jaws is like one of his best ever movies. So, okay, and our next movie up is Breakdown from 1997, and that's directed by Jonathan Mostow.
This is crazy. Look at this. If you win this mail-in contest, you can choose between $90,000 or 90,000 donuts.
A leisurely cross-country trip.
What the hell?
What did you do?
Hang on, I can't steer.
An unexpected breakdown.
Can you believe this?
A helpful passerby.
Folks all right?
Our car broke down.
I can give you a ride to Bell's, a little diner about 5 miles down the road. They got a payphone. You call a tow truck. They just come in and haul you out.
It could happen to anyone.
Excuse me. I was supposed to meet my wife here. She's dark-haired, about 5'5".
Doesn't ring a bell.
Pull over!
Now an ordinary man.
Listen, I'm looking for my wife.
Look, I don't know how to tell you this, but I've never seen you before in my life.
Has an unbelievable story.
It was him. It was this truck.
The police are doubtful.
I searched the truck. No sign of a struggle.
The locals are suspicious.
You know, there's over 100,000 people go missing in this country every year, all vanishing without a trace.
But he's not worried about the ones who think he's crazy.
My wife did not leave me.
He's worried about the ones who know he's telling the truth.
You the fella looking for his wife?
I saw what happened.
We're gonna be watching you.
When do I see my wife?
Soon enough, Jeff should start walking.
Get down on the ground!
Police just one's in on it.
What do you want?
Kurt Russell.
You better pray she's alive.
Breakdown.
Where is she?
And that stars Kurt Russell and Kathleen Quinlan as a married couple who are making their way from Massachusetts, my home state, to San Diego. I guess it's like a bit they're moving. You got a new job or something in San Diego, so they're driving across country in like a Jeep Cherokee, and that's how when the movie starts. I don't know where I'm actually not sure where they are when the movie starts. Is it like
Utah or northern Arizona?
Yeah, Utah or something like that. But they're driving. It starts out like most of they're just driving down the highways and they stop at like a gas station to like get some food or something and the first person they meet is some guy. He's like this like kind of like rude redneck guy, and it's MC Gainey, and I think that's the guy that played Big Raj in Django Unchained. I think that's that guy. And he's, he always plays like rednecks and stuff. And I think he was Swamp Thing in Con Air. I don't know if people like that movie. That's one of my favorites, like Nick Cage movies. But he plays Swamp Thing in that. But if you see him, you'll kind of recognize him if you know those. But he he kind of like berates Kurt Russell's character. He's like saying something to him like, "Oh, that's a nice new car you got there. Oh, you must make a lot of money." And that's kind of like giving him like a hard time. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just kind of like driving down the street. What's the problem here, buddy?" Gives him like kind of like a little shit, like, talking to him. I don't know what the hell. They're like, "What the hell?" So then they drive off down the street and the car stalls. They're like, "Oh, great. Now what are we going to do?" So then they start looking around, try to figure out what's wrong with the car. And then guess who drives, starts driving towards them is that guy. Like, they're like, "Oh shit, now what are they going to do?" So they're kind of stuck there for a little while trying to figure out what's wrong with the car. And then luckily a big truck shows up and the guy gets out and it's JT Walsh. And if you're a fan of movie, most people know JT Walsh. He's always like playing like supporting roles, but he's really good, a really good supporting actor. Like if you've seen like Hoffa, or he was in that one, and if you've seen A Few Good Men, he's in that one. He's just a really good, kind of a supporting character actor guy. So he offers to give them a ride. And they say, "Oh no, I think it's," he says, "Oh, maybe the car just needs to cool down a little. The Jeep needs to cool down a little bit, and it'll be back again." And Kurt Russell says, "We'll just stay. We'll just wait and see if the thing cools down, if it'll start back up again." But then his wife decides to go with JT Walsh's character. She's like, "Well, why don't you stay with the Jeep, and I'll go and stop at the the rest stop down the road, like 7 miles down the road, and I'll wait for you. And when you get the thing fixed, come and pick me up." And he goes, "All right, just go ahead, and we'll see you a little later." So then what happens is he finally figures out what's wrong with the car. There was some wires, unattached wires, like underneath the front of it, and
we never know if somebody did it or it's just
no, you don't know that. You're not sure about that, but later on we'll talk about it later on. So he hooks the thing back up again. The car starts back up again. He's feeling good. He gets in the car, drives to the rest stop, and he finds and he's looking for his wife. He's like, "My wife Amy, did you see her come in here?" And he's like, "I don't know, buddy. I just I've been so busy, I haven't even noticed anybody coming in or going out." So then he's like, "Oh no, so she's not even here." So then that's how like the whole thing, it starts to getting a little bit more like, nervous about what's going on. So then he gets in the truck, and I think he's going to the truck, going back to the Jeep, and there's a guy fixing his car nearby, and he's like, "Hey buddy, are you looking for your wife?" Or like, he's like saying something like that. And he's like, "Yeah, have you seen her?" And he's like, "Yeah, she got," I forget what he says though. What did he say? He like said you got in the truck and went with.
I think he wants to go on because there's a town 20 miles down the road, and then he sees the semi, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
he
that's
races
right. That's
after
right.
him.
That's right. Yeah. So then he sees the guy in the truck and he's like, "Where's my wife?" And the guy's like, "I don't know who you are, buddy." And like he never even met him before. That's what happens. He says like, and then all of a sudden the cop drives up and he's like, "Oh, hey cop, police over here, we need help." And then he starts to like try to tell the cop like, that this guy took his wife and now she's gone. And he's like, the cop is like giving him more, just as much shit as the other guy is. And he's like, we don't know. It's like he doesn't believe him or something. It's just that's what kind of ties this movie with Duel together, is because every time these guys get in trouble, like everybody they go to like gives them shit about it, like they don't believe them, or they treat them like crap or something, like it's like that type of thing. And so it's like that's how
Exactly.
that's how it goes.
That's what we said earlier.
They
It's
don't
like
believe him, or
you have somebody from out of town. He's ruffling feathers with some locals.
right.
You piss off.
He just
some
looks like
rednecks
some
or
like
whatever.
jerky. Yeah, he just looks like some jerky, like rich guy or something, like being like an idiot or something like that. Yeah.
Then he goes back to the diner and he starts playing detective.
Right, and then he gets the diner guy all pissed off at him, and like the guy's like basically pulls out a gun or something and says, "Oh, okay, get out of here." And Kurt Russell's like, "Okay." He's like, "Oh, great." And so then he goes to, the whole thing is basically he's trying to, he's on the road trying to find his wife and nobody's helping him basically. So then what happens is he goes down a road, like this road, and it's kind of closed or something, but then he sees the guy in the truck again and they start chasing him. So he basically drives down this like dead end part of the highway where it's under construction. He just drives right into the river. Remember? He just basically just drives the Jeep right into the river, and like and the guy's basically taking shots at him with a rifle, like up on the hill, and he's like, "Oh my God." So I mean, this is the type of stuff that's going on. So he's like trying to get out of there, and the guy's basically just shooting him with the rifle, and he basically manages to get out just like by the skin of his teeth.
Without giving too much away, but it turns he manages to really find out that it is in fact the truck driver, and that they kidnapped his wife.
Right.
And then to
I know what happens.
Yeah.
I don't want to like give away every like last little detail.
Don't give away too much.
Yeah, I'm giving him out too much, I guess.
He gets into a ransom type situation.
Yeah,
but
ransom. It's like extortion thing. Yeah.
But he's in the middle of nowhere, and he can't come up with that kind of money anyway. So now he's got to take matters into his own hands.
Right. So, because like when they kidnap his wife, they find out that he's like, he has a lot of money because she she gave up like the information and stuff. So they find out like, that he does have the money. So they basically extort him into going to the bank and getting the money for them. But what he does was, instead of like getting all the money, he only gives them like, he just gives them like 10,000 ones or something like that. And then that's at the whole part where, the guy finds out that it's not like, the actual, the amount of money. So they get into this. That's a pretty awesome section where he like kind of like takes back control of like the situation. Like he gets the guy, MC Gainey's character, like, and he like tapes him to the seat of the truck and stuff. And he like basically takes back control of the situation. That was like really an awesome section of the movie. And he's like, that's the other thing about both of these movies is like they both, the everyman like taking control of this dire situation they're in. That's like, that's the whole thing. Like that's what makes people like these types of movies, I think, is because we put ourselves like, what would we do in that situation? Would we like be able to like do this type of stuff, or would we like be too scared, or would we go along with it, or would we try to like call the cops and have them help us, or that's the type of stuff that goes through your mind when you're watching it.
Yeah, and we have a similar situation here. You have a city guy, he's wearing like a polo shirt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's probably a pencil
kind of a
pusher.
preppy, like, wealthy guy.
Yeah, I mean wealthy compared like relatively for the situation he's in. I don't think he's not a rich guy. I mean, even for the 90s, a cheap Cherokee is not the most expensive car.
And he's not like he's not like like he doesn't look like a redneck type guy. He's like more of like a guy that like, he would bring his car to like the shop to get fixed. He wouldn't like do it himself type person.
Yeah. He's not a self-reliant he's a city folk. He's
probably. Although he's from Massachusetts, so he's more of like an upper crust guy from Massachusetts. Like I know like kind of like what they're going for that character. You know what I mean?
And and then he's got the thing is we're in the genre, right? So you got number one. That's
fish out of water. Fish out of water again.
Fish out of the water, and that's what you get for taking the scenic route. They could have
The
just
scenic route.
driven somewhere else. Why did they have to go through the
But
redneck
but I
country?
mean, like in a way, like what you're saying is like they're just not doing anything, just driving like down the highway. I mean, they're not even like they didn't go to like into any like it's not like Deliverance where they go into like this backwoods town or something. They're basically just on the main highway. So that's what makes it kind of weird. Like, but
But
then yeah.
there's a piece of dialogue in the beginning where they purposely took that route because it was the scenic route.
Oh yeah, well yeah, but I mean,
So there's it's always I'm just saying from the perspective of the rules of the genre,
yeah, right, yeah, yeah,
they
right.
have a little bit themselves to blame.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's true. I guess like if they were like different on a like on a
Like
real,
why are they invading these poor rednecks' territory?
yeah, right.
Another thing which I think is funny in hindsight, I'm not sure you because you're American, you know this better, but the Jeep breaks down. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's a joke on itself because that's not
The car breaking down.
it's never no the Jeep's never been known for a reliable car.
Oh yeah, Jeeps. Yeah, yeah.
The Chrysler must have been furious at this movie. So you have the fish out of water,
Yeah.
but number two, you got the ostensibly defenseless city guy with the pretty wife, the
Yeah.
braless pretty wife that is
Braless pretty.
very she's also like she gladly goes along with the truck driver, so
Yeah.
she's also careless.
Yeah.
And
She's
maybe
kind of like the damsel in like kind of she's not dumb, but I mean she's just kind of like a
no,
damsel
it's
in
just
distress.
not very careful and
Yeah.
maybe a little bit over
A little
um,
reckless like or something.
yeah, a little reckless,
Careless like.
basically. She was in The Hills Have Eyes remake.
She was Kathleen Quinlan was?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think
it's
I didn't see
actually
it.
pretty good for a remake.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
But I mean I saw the original one though.
And it's Kurt Russell, I would say in his prime,
Yeah, and
the late 90s.
it's cool because Kurt Russell's like he's a very diverse actor because obviously we love the movie Escape from New York and like where he played Snake Plissken, he's like the toughest guy like on the planet. But then you see him in this movie and he's like kind of like he's not a like he's just like Dennis Weaver's character. He's not like a wimp like in quotes, but he's just like kind of like a every man like not into confrontations, just like a regular guy basically. I mean most of us are like that. We don't want to like fight people in the middle of the street for nothing, that type of stuff. You know what I mean? So he's that type of character. So he was very good. He's very good at playing those types of different types of roles.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the thing I was going to bring up was a few years before this, I saw him in another movie called Unlawful Entry, and he played another character kind of like this. With Ray Liotta was like the bad guy, and he's like, it's sort of the same type of dynamic as this type of movie, but it's not like it's not like a road movie.
I
It's more
remember
of like
that one. Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
it's more of like he's like I forget what the thing. I think he's just like a stalker. Ray Liotta is the stalker, and like he ends up like
It's like a home invasion thing,
yeah,
right?
home invasion type movie, and like and he just fucked stalking them and stuff. But it's like it's just I like to see like how actors play different roles like that throughout their career. It's just very cool, like how they can do that. They can play like the super tough guy, and then they can play like the normal guy too. So it's just there was just a little thing I was thinking of when I was watching it.
And what's
And everybody in the
also
movie is great, by the way. Like acting,
Yeah, I think so
like so
too.
good.
and kind of trivia wise, I mean, I'm not a Jonathan Mostow fan, but with
Yeah.
he did U-571,
Oh
which
yeah, that was a good
okay.
one too. I
He
like
did
that one.
Terminator 3, which was
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, it was watchable, but it's not the best of the Terminator movies, you know what I mean?
Oh,
But
no.
he's not it wasn't that bad, but yeah, I mean, compared to like the first two, I mean, it's not that great.
What I think is interesting, this is one of the many movies that were produced by the Italian mega producer Dino De Laurentiis.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about
And for those not familiar with him,
Yeah.
let me just Assassins, Army of Darkness, Orca, The White Buffalo, Mandingo, Crazy Joe, Valachi Papers, Sledge, Danger Diabolic, Navajo Joe. So
I was
this
going
is
to say
this- this is
Diabolic.
the- he's a big guy. I mean,
Barbarella too,
producer-wise.
right? Wasn't it Barbarella too? I think. I think he did Barbarella.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
He did all those like those
Yeah,
like
he could
swinging
be-
60s like
yeah.
sci-fi movies and stuff.
that's true. Yeah, but he could have been.
And
one of
King
them.
he did King Kong too, right? The 76 one, I think.
I'm not sure.
I think so. I think that was a Dino movie.
A Dino movie.
Good old Dino.
Yeah, so I mean, what I was going to say,
Yeah.
this is no B movie. So
Oh.
this was a quite the
Yeah, and that
production.
was I think it was a very successful at the box office too. I actually didn't see this one at the movies, but I know it was like a pretty successful one.
I
I think I saw
saw
it
it.
on VHS.
I
Yeah.
think I saw it at the movies, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to
You're not sure.
necessarily bet on it because
Yeah.
it's been a long time ago.
1997. Like I remember, I'm pretty sure I rented it on VHS back then. That was like probably like at the tail end of when I would rent VHSs back then. That's how I saw it. And I remember
Yeah.
really liking it too when I first saw it. So I was like, this is an awesome film.
No, it is pretty good.
Yeah.
And also I like the little twist that they did on the genre is where the fight's not at the end. It starts very early on that he's not a pushover. I mean he might
Right.
be fish out of water and he's
Yeah.
not definitely
Yeah, that
not
was
up to
really
the
good. I
task,
mean,
but he starts playing detective really early on.
and also he fights back pretty good too. I'm like, that's the whole thing. It's like that's the whole thing like with this type of movie. It's like the everyman, but then like that's what makes it a movie versus real life is he kind of becomes his own hero, like, and I mean most people wouldn't be able to do what he does, but he kind of like he goes to the next level, like he go like like when he's chasing the truck and he sees he's like chasing after JT Walsh's character. He happens to like find him at a truck stop, then he like sees him pulling out in the truck, and he goes and runs and jumps underneath and hangs on underneath the truck so he can like find out where his wife is, basically. But I mean, most people wouldn't do something like that. But it's like taking it to the movie level, like the movie fantasy level, and it just makes it fun. That's why you go see a movie, because of stuff like that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and it doesn't take itself too seriously, and I
No.
think that it works really well
Yeah,
for
it
that.
does. It does
Yeah.
work really well, and it's very suspenseful. Like it's just like Duel in that way. Like the way it kind of like step by step kind of escalates as the movie goes on. Like what's going to happen next? Is he going to be able to get out of this? And you're following him as he tries to like be a detective and like find out where his wife is, and he's fighting back against these guys, and that's another part that we love in those types of movies is like the person that fights back against their they're not playing the victim, they're trying to like take control of the situation and stuff, and that kind of ramps up the suspense of it and the tension of it.
Yeah, I mean
I think so.
this and what's the one where he plays the president or something?
Yeah, I actually saw that at the movies. Executive Decision, I think.
Yeah,
The one on
that
the
one comes
plane.
to mind.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. Yeah, that was a good one too. But I mean, all through the 90s, he was in a bunch of good movies.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I've been saying is the 90s, I think, was him at his peak, sort of.
Yep. Right. That's like where I think that's where he like started like kind of like playing different types of characters, like not always playing like the hero, but playing like these types of well, actually he's a hero in this movie, but like just playing like normal guys that like that instead of being like the superhero from the very beginning, like they find their heroic spirit through like the situation that they're in or something like that. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
But
And also what you said in the beginning is that his or a couple minutes, or no, not at the beginning, but when we were talking about how much he's a fish out of the water, we were talking about that he's sort of he's somebody who has to jump his own shadow in the situation he's in. He might as well be a tough guy, in the city
yeah,
when he's out in the bar with his office buddies, but in this
right,
situation,
right. This is like do or die type stuff.
he's
Like
got to learn that he's
yeah,
not the alpha here.
right. I mean, it's like that's like the whole thing. That's like the whole psychological thing of it. It's like, that's what makes it so good. Like there's one, that one scene like where he goes to the bank and he's gonna like I love those types of scenes. He goes into the bank and he almost tells the guy that he's the bank accountant guy, the bank teller guy, like he's in this trouble, like he's being extorted for the money, but he doesn't quite do it because he sees another guy come in and he's like suspicious. Is that guy with those the guys that are extorting me? He doesn't know if he should say anything, but then he says, "Okay, I just forget it. I got in an accident. I'm just kind of shaken up. I'm like I'm not thinking right here." But that's the type of stuff that like ramps up the suspense, like, and then he gets the money and he goes and like calls him and says like, "Oh, I got the money," so and then the guy tells him like, "Oh, we're gonna come pick you up and get in the car with the money," and that type of thing. but that's like all the stuff that like makes the movie really good is like all those little moments like where like you don't know what to think, like is this going to happen, or is this what is he going to do now, and that type of thing.
No, it's
It just
maybe
really ramps it.
maybe a last thought from my end is I think that there's a lot of twists and turns in this movie that make it a
Yeah,
little bit more interesting than most. No, definitely worth it.
yeah, definitely one of my favorite road thrillers or road movies in general. I just like that genre. Like we were talking about Midnight Run one day, and I love that one. That's one of my favorites with Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin. That's a really fun one.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, that's another one of my favorites. And then there's another one called Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and that was like one that Kiefer Sutherland directed and starred in. That's a kind of a fun movie. It's like a crime film, like where this group of people like take these people, like kind of like it's what happens is like this group of criminals take these people hostage, but then the people that are the Kevin Pollak plays one of the people, the couple, one of the couple, and like he kind of like sees the criminals as sort of cool in a way, so he kind of like takes their side in a way. He like sees it like as like a wild adventure versus like they're like terrible people. It was just kind of a cool dynamic the way they did that. Instead of making them like like hostages, like he kind of like joins their side. Like it's kind of cool. I just like that movie.
There's also
There's
two
a
that
gal.
just come to my mind. One is Freeway with Kiefer Sutherland, I think.
Freeway.
Is it called Freeway? I'm
Yeah, I
not
think
sure.
I've heard of it. I'm not sure if I've seen it. Is it
And
Dennis Hopper in that?
then
No.
I'm not
Oh,
sure.
he
And
was in one with
then
Dennis Hopper. It must be another one. It was a different one.
what's the one with Charlie Sheen?
The Chase.
Yeah, I think The
That's a
Chase.
good one.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a fun movie. He's basically just he takes the girl. Well, the whole thing is like he takes the girl hostage, but of course, like halfway through the movie, they're having sex as he's driving the car down the highway, like that type of stuff. This is Charlie Sheen, so you
Charlie
can't.
Harper.
That's how you do it. So
Yeah,
that's how he rolls. So
absolutely.
winning. He's always saying
Yes, he's really winning.
Tiger blood and all that stuff. Yeah, so that was a awesome double feature. I thought, like that was really good. If you love road thrillers, that's as good as it gets. I mean, we could have got really detailed on Breakdown, but it's like at the same time, like we could just spoil the whole thing, but with all the different awesome scenes that there were. I mean, it's like you don't want to ruin it all for people either. You know what I mean? It's one of those like it's worth like checking out, and once you watch it, you'll be like, okay, that's really cool. You'll really like all this stuff. I mean, and especially like towards the end of the movie, like that's where it really gets. I love the end, like the last half hour. Oh, that is awesome. Like where I won't ruin it, but that's especially cool at the very end. And actually, the end of Breakdown reminded me of Duel a lot too. The way it's actually probably more. It's probably a better action sequence at the end of Breakdown because of the way they do it. But it was something about it, the way like the truck and stuff, like the big truck and the chase and stuff that reminded me of Duel a lot for some reason. That probably
Yeah, I mean, obviously they had a way bigger budget,
yeah,
and
it's more of a big budget movie, but more like they have more room to like do all those different
pulled out more
sequences and stuff.
stops.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I just loved it. I thought it was great. So those are my two of our favorites, and that's for that show.
Great double feature.
Yep. Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up then.
We'll probably do a Gene Hackman double feature.
Yeah, we're going to do a Gene Hackman tribute because he just passed away this week, and we're both big fans of him. And he has so many good, awesome movies in his career. So we'll pick out a couple that we really like, and we'll do that on the next episode. And I'm looking forward to that. So that'll be really fun. So, okay, great. It was nice talking to you, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See you later. Bye.
See you.
And that's that.